Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Leadership in today's world is no longer just about barking orders and expecting obedience. It demands a dynamic and versatile set of skills ranging from the traditional to the tech savvy. They must empathize with their followers, break down silos, and create a collaborative environment that fosters innovation. In order to recognize the leaders who innovate, develop, and thrive in events in times of uncertainty, CNBC-TV18 pioneered the India Business Leader Awards.
When we started the India Business Leader Awards, we were very clear that this needs to be a peer review. So if you take a look at the IBLA jury, it is a very, very robust exercise. First, we draw up a list of candidates that we take to the jury. The IBLA jury sits for a couple of hours going over each nominated candidate, discussing the pros and cons, and it's a very, very robust process. A lot of due diligence goes into it. A lot of questions are asked of us as well, and there is a lot of emphasis not just on the subjective aspects but also on the quantitative aspects, and I think that really gives IBLA the credibility, the stature.
Their journeys taught us resilience. Their vision led our resurgence. Their unconventional thinking makes them the leaders of tomorrow. Such achievements call for a celebration of leadership. Let's hear it from our honorable jury panel, who will recognize and appraise these leaders and share their expertise on how India can transition from resilience to resurgence. Presenting the elite jury panel of Standard Chartered presents CNBC-TV18 India Business Leader Awards.
While I think there is consensus that at this point in time, the risks domestically are few and far between, the risks globally are the ones that we need to brace ourselves for. You talked about the foreign debt aspect and how that makes some companies perhaps more vulnerable. And that's what I wanted to understand. If the Indian banking system doesn't have a systemic risk at this point in time, what are some of the global challenges that you are worried about?
See, I think, and I see a lot of corporates here, they should be borrowing more from Indian financial institutions. They're borrowing too much from outside. I'm sure my banking colleagues will agree with us.
Mr. Khara, you want to come in on that as well?
No, I think market is probably guiding them to borrow more from the Indian market. No. Global markets
and I believe that, and I'm not going into any specifics, I think this is a time for Indian financial sector to build its capacity, both in terms of underwriting skills as well as scale. And I do not believe global financiers necessarily have better underwriting skills, but India has to hone it, and its own financial sector should be able to do thorough diligence and get its underwriting right. If we do that, and we need to build a whole host of capacities in India so that corporates feel that the first port of call is to borrow from India.
I do tend to agree with Dude, but at the same time, I think we had all expected that 25 basis point increase will be there. It was already factored by the market. I would say that the kind of enablers which they have put in now in terms of, when it comes to users of UPI, even the international players who are coming, international tourist traffic, they can also use UPI when they are coming into the country. Apart from that, securities, borrowing and lending, more so for the mutual funds and the insurance company, will make this particular market more deeper, which was the need of the hour.
Rajiv Memani, let me get you in on this aspect as well, on how global investors are viewing the India story at this point in time and what you believe will be the India advantage that can be leveraged.
Yeah, I would say by and large, when people come from different parts of the world, and they come to India, the general optimism in India is right now probably very high. I think the budget delivered a very good message in terms of government's focus on macroeconomics. The investments in infrastructure and the multiplier impact of that, fiscal deficit, so on and so forth. So I would say by and large they are very excited about India. They want to invest more. And I'm talking more about not so much people who are investing in the markets, but much more about private equity, venture capital, foreign direct investment, strategic investors.
And Zareen, I want you to comment on this, because this really is being positioned as the big opportunity, as our big moment, as global supply chains diversify and India emerges as a credible alternative, especially from a manufacturing perspective. To Rajiv Memani's point, are the pieces that we need to put in place, the building blocks that we need to put in place there yet? Are we closer to an inflection point today, to your mind?
I would say we are closer to an inflection point. Maybe if I look at 3-4 years back compared to that, I mean, when I went to US on my road shows, almost every MNC was very interested in India. To that extent, I would say we are really at an inflection point. Having said that, we shouldn't underestimate our other countries who are really also wooing a lot of the FDI, like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, which are also becoming, and the whole ASEAN bloc is becoming quite a big beneficiary of the China Plus One. Having said that, I think our PLI scheme has been really, and the low corporate tax rate has been really attracting foreign direct investment in a meaningful way.
Largely speaking, India's image, especially with the COVID crisis and before that even, as the pharmacy of the world is very, very strong. You know, whether it's at Davos or any of these global events, you see the interest that we have. But I'll tell you one or two things that we need to do to continue that momentum, and it's very critical, especially now that China, Korea, and the African continent are also investing and having a lot of capital flow there to make pharmaceuticals and vaccines. We need to press on with the reforms that we have suggested to the government. Government's been very proactive. We've already made a lot of changes, like, the stockpile permission, so you don't lose 9 months between, clinical trials and research and then building up the vaccine stock or pharmaceutical stock. Reforms, and also building our supply chain in India. Especially the pharmaceutical industry has been dependent on APIs and imports from China. You're seeing a lot of investment now being made in India by domestic players to be totally self-reliant.
So today's India's retail book is about retail personal credit alone is close to about $600 billion. That's about 50 lakh crores on an economy of, let's call it 300 lakh crores, which is about, say, 16-17%. Now, as in India moves toward the US kind of numbers, say 92%. US, by the way, is a $19.6 trillion consumer credit on a $22 trillion economy. That's like 95%. So as we migrate this path, one thing India has got right early on in the game, while it's still very small on consumer credit, is that our ecosystem of credit bureau, which is a very good guardrail, the cash flow lending, the UPI-based collection, India has developed that and credit assessment through digital channels. So India has got those guardrails right before we started the credit journey, which should give a lot of comfort to all of us that we're not, hopefully not going to have a huge credit cycle on the way.
So since we're talking about consumption and we're talking about prices, TV Narendran, let me ask you, the big X factor in all of this is, of course, what China does and what that is going to mean as far as commodity prices are concerned. We've started to see some visible impact of that. What's the expectation?
I think that's the elephant in the room. China is expected to come back more strongly than most people thought. Let's wait and see over the next few weeks, because there's a lot of pent-up consumption in China. Just like we saw in India because of COVID restrictions, a lot of consumption didn't happen. If you see what's happening in China over the last few weeks, travel is really moving, not just for Lunar New Year. There are a lot of people coming into China, traveling out of China. So there are a lot of parts of the Chinese economy which are expected to rebound because of the COVID restrictions being removed. Secondly, I think they have done a good job of fixing most of the property issues that they dealt with, that they had. And so if China comes back strongly, if you really look at what triggered inflation a few years back, it was a post-COVID recovery and supply chains couldn't keep up. I think supply chains have got fixed a lot, but the recovery in China could be something which drives inflation back again.
Yeah. Well, Anish, consumption, this was the big sort of budget that tried to do its part as far as capex was concerned, credit and consumption. At this point in time, what's the outlook really as far as consumption is concerned?
We are seeing very strong consumption across all our sectors. In auto, it's driven by products that we have. Surprisingly, the farm sector has held up very well. And the growth in farm equipment, in tractors in particular, has been far higher than what we've expected this year.
So, this is what I want to link. Sanjeev Mehta, I want you to come in on this. Here's Anish Shah saying that actually rural demand as far as their tractor segment is concerned has been very, very strong. But that hasn't been the case as far as FMCG is concerned. How do the two then reconcile?
Yeah, there is a fundamental difference. Tractors are not owned by farm hands. Farm hands consumption is driven by wages. Yeah, and it is not that the growth is not there. If you look at the full year 22, we are still talking about the top line or the headline growth still being positive even in rural India. But for the kind of price increase we have seen, which has been unprecedented, it's also not surprising that the consumers have titrated the volume.
Prabha, and I want to come to you on that. What are the trends that you're seeing? Because there was a lot of expectation on what it would mean in terms of down trading and so on and so forth. Many companies have in fact innovated as far as pack sizes are concerned just to be able to beat inflation. What are you seeing at this point in time, and how are you mitigating some of these risks?
So what we're seeing actually is very similar to what Mr. Mehta said in terms of the rural consumption not coming back as fast, and certainly amongst the rural poor, we are seeing consumption being under serious pressure, particularly in categories that are not seen as fully essential, and a choice can be made. What we are seeing at the other end of the spectrum is premium urban consumers are actually driving market demand, and premiumization continues to grow apace. So it's kind of like a two-phased market. And in terms of pack sizes and down trading, we're not seeing any significant shift as yet, more just a curtailment of consumption where money is tight and wages are not coming back to meet the inflation that's happening in their baskets. But it will come, and we are seeing a little bit of green shoots, so hopefully it will come as we go on. And obviously there is always more opportunity at the premiumization end of the spectrum.
Continuing with IBLA's legacy of honoring resilient leadership, here is a sneak peek into some of IBLA's memorable moments over the year.
As you look at the many variables that you will have to factor in and consider both domestically as well as globally, do you walk into the new year with confidence, with cautious optimism, or nervousness?
Cautious optimism. I would have loved to say I'm walking with confidence, because the response that the Indian people have shown for the last 1 year for the various developments, the policy initiatives, and also the challenges which they are facing in the ground is been phenomenal. I don't think I'll have enough words to appreciate the energy with which people have taken the challenges, faced it, and also found solutions to come out of it. The government, of course, has done some bit. It can do a lot more. We will keep the pace up and we'll keep responding. But it is to the credit of the people of India for showing that grit to come out of this kind of a situation. And why do I say come out? I'm not saying it with a sense of a false sense of confidence or anything, but look at the numbers. I couldn't have started this year with a better number in the GST collection, 142,100.
We have been reimagining and reinventing ourselves, and it's a journey, not a destination. Having said that, we firmly believe that we have to live with the times, with the changing times, the changing societal expectations, and our endeavor is to make every Indian proud of Hindustan Unilever.
Last 2 years it's been, and I would imagine it's been far from easy for you. But hopefully the pandemic is behind us. Fingers crossed. What next for Serum?
I think, we'll just continue building on this momentum. And my only prayer from the government also to support the speed at which we were able to do things. The speed of doing business is, I think, as important as ease of doing business. And we saw that during this pandemic, and we witnessed that it is possible. And, with competition, madam, also from China and South Korea, even the African continent, which is now looking at investing to compete with India's, pharmaceutical industry, we really must continue this momentum. So I just hope to build on this success and hope this industry will continue leading India globally as well.
Gentlemen, congratulations, and it's so good to have you here joining us live at the India Business Leader Awards. And I have to say, each one of them has actually been a Young Turk, so doubly proud moment for all of us here on the Young Turks team. Vivek, let me start by asking you, we were chatting a few days ago, talking about the challenges of 2020 and how you overcame each of those. But what does the road ahead look like? I mean, what will be the pillars of growth that you intend to now focus on?
First of all, it's an amazing feeling to sit here and see that we are actually not just survived 2020, but actually have been recognized by the jury. So thank you to the jury. It's an August jury, and I, on behalf of all Swixters, super happy to receive this. On to your question on 2021, we've actually come out of 2020 with a far more diversified portfolio of services because we pretty much tried everything in 2020. So I'm very confident that we entered 2020 or the pandemic as a food delivery player, but we will exit 2021 with definitely a resurgent food business.
Let me go across to Nitin. Nitin, congratulations. 2 million to 5 million. What a journey 2020 has turned out to be for you. We've seen that DMAT rush. What's the aspiration from here on, Nitin? What are you hoping for?
No, I mean, a lot of firstly, thanks, Shireen, and thanks to the jury for the award and the recognition. So a lot of people who've come to the markets in the last 1 year are first-time investors. So now the onus is on us to make sure, to find ways to help them kind of navigate through all these, the roller coaster called stock markets.
Prashant, congratulations to you and the entire team at 1MG. So what is the big force for the future now that you're focusing on?
Thank you for this recognition. This is hugely motivating for the entire 1MG team. I think what we set out to do was make healthcare more understandable, more customer-centric, more affordable, more accessible. And what the pandemic did actually was provided us an opportunity to showcase it at scale. So now from here, I think we are moving into a new paradigm where digital healthcare is now a key part of the healthcare delivery architecture for the country. We want to play a key role in that.
When I was in my 50s and I got a Lifetime Achievement Award, I was told it's too early in life. Then when I got a Lifetime Achievement Award in the 60s, I got the subtle hint that I have to hang my boots. Now that I'm in my 70s and I'm getting another award, I'm convinced I don't need any awards simply because in India today we have so many young and amazing achievers. I'm accepting this award on behalf of all the HDFC group companies and all the employees of the HDFC for the last 40 years, past and present, who have contributed to the growth of this brand. Thank you, Ibla, and thank you, the jury.
Nirmala Sitharaman as Commerce Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman as Defense Minister, or Nirmala Sitharaman as Finance Minister. Which one is the most challenging role?
All of them have been very interesting. Indeed, immensely grateful for the Prime Minister to have vested so much of trust in me to be able to move like this. But each one has its own charm. So I can't even choose.
Give it up for the man who has turned Reliance Industries into India's most valuable company. Mukesh Ambani, Chairman and Managing Director, Reliance Industries, the iconic business leader of the decades.
The wait for an interview continues, sir. But that aside, what should we expect now in the next decade?
I have to thank the jury, CNBC-TV18 for this recognition. For me, in my life, the only iconic leader has been my father, Dhirubhai Ambani. And he has taught us that we have to dream big, big for Reliance, and even bigger for India. So this evening, what I want to do is dedicate this recognition to my father, Shri Dhirubhai Ambani, and together with him to the young leaders of Reliance who have really transformed Reliance in the last decade. I am very, very optimistic, and I think that within India, all of us in business in this coming decade have a historic opportunity to build an India of our dreams and to collectively work to drive India to be among the top 3 economies in the world. Thank you.
Now that you're here, I mean, of course, holiday season is a bit far away, but still, what is your best holiday destination? Where are the most attractive Oyo rooms and the most attractive destinations?
For me personally, Shillong is the best destination. One of the best Oyo hotels are in the city. So if you're there, please check out Oyo. It's hard to find any other branded hotel there, but Oyo is there for you.
What inspired this big basket? Is it that mama at home told you to go and buy all the groceries and you just decided to solve it technologically?
So, quick story. I have been shopping for my family since I was in standard 5th. My dad was in BHL Bhopal. There used to be weekly markets, so I used to shop for fruits and vegetables. My budget was 20 rupees for the whole family. So as a consumer, I have really kind of lived through that experience. And while I was doing a project in London for Tesco.com, I realized that this is something which India needs, because the amount of time we as consumers really spend doing shopping, especially fruits and vegetables, which you have to buy every second, third day. I said, you know, there's too much of productivity loss which is really happening as at a country level. So that was the idea.
What do you personally enjoy more? Working with politics, marketing and branding parties, or do you like to stick to products and brands otherwise?
I think I love creating messaging, communicating to the consumer. To me, the consumer comes before the product and the politics. If I understand the consumer, I'll be able to communicate what the politician or the product owner wants to say. And I love interacting with them. I actually love, more than this award also, which I really value, is when I go for a haircut and my barber says, "Sir, I love your ad." And that's the day.
Which is what I have to ask you. So many years, decades. Give us the one or two of the most memorable lines, the most memorable campaigns for you personally.
I think the most valuable to me is the polio campaign, because it ended up in a result which we all enjoyed, the workers, the government, ourselves, when India was declared polio-free in 2014.
The India Business Leader Awards have honored achievers, outstanding leaders, and true visionaries of corporate India. The awards will continue to celebrate and honor some of the deserving leaders in the Indian business landscape.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.